Well, welcome to Bethel School. Bethel School is a Wayne County, Pennsylvania heritage site. It opened somewhere around the early 1870s. We have a copy of the original deed inside that was signed in November of 1874. And it came from the property of John Harvey. And this whole area was known as the Indian Orchard Tract on the old warranty deeds. We think originally there was an older school down the road a bit, showed on the 1860 map, but in the 1872 Beers map, it's located here at where we are today. So we know that it was open, you know, as I said, in the early 1870s. As you can see, the little building up there, that is a facsimile of the boys' outhouse because there was no indoor plumbing when Bethel School was in operation. So on that side was the boys' outhouse, and over here on the other side was a girls' outhouse. And I can tell you there were no potty parades in the wintertime. Across the road at one time was Schwartz's cow pasture, but now there's that house down there. We did have electricity, but now today there's no electricity, but there is, you know, there was electricity when I was here as a student. I was a student here from 1st through 5th grades. 1946 I started here in the fall, and it closed in 1951. My teacher the whole time was Mary McCarthy. She lived in Hawley. You can see the little indentation there. That was the driveway, you know, where could come up. Mary did not drive a car. Her brother brought her to school every day. But after the school closed, she was assigned to the Beach Lake School. And we remained friends right up until she passed away. You know, as I said, she was a wonderful teacher, and we just remained good friends even after, you know, the school closed. The school had all 8 grades. There was usually, you know, over time, of course, you know, changed, but when I was here, there was usually somewhere around 20 to 24 students. You know, sometimes there was no 1st grade, then there'd be no 2nd grade, and so on. But the usual attendance was about, you know, 20 to 24 students when I was here. As I said, I did grades 1 through 5 here. After the school closed, if you were in grades 1 through 6, you were assigned to the Beach Lake School. If you were in grades 7 through 8, 7 and 8, then you went into Honesdale, which was at that time the Honesdale Junior Senior High School on Church Street. But it was a wonderful school experience. Up there, behind you, or you know, that is what we known as the Poor Farm. It was one time known as the Honesdale and Texas Almshouse, and the clear field that you see there was a apple orchard. And when you came out for, you know, lunchtime was usually about an hour. You know, if you wanted to eat your lunch in that apple tree up there, that was fine. If you wanted to play down in Schwartz's cow pasture, that was fine too, as long as you came back when the bell rang. Over on the other side, over here, was a coal shed, and that's what the fuel was used, you know, when I was a student here. I'm sure that, you know, over times it changed, but when I was here, there was a, you know, coal shed, and they burned coal for the fuel. Our water, our drinking water, came from Schwartz's, who lived down that way, and he was a gentleman by the name of Fred Schwartz. He owned that farm over there, and his granddaughter went here to school, so we got our drinking water from there. And you know, so if you'd like to come inside now, I'll show you some of the things that we did inside.
Go ahead.
By the way, the school is now owned by Wayne County. After the school closed in 1951, in 1959 the county purchased it from Berlin Township. Berlin Township once had 10 one-room schools, and this was one of them. It was the last one, along with the Lorella School. It was the last one-room school to close in Berlin Township. So in 1959, the county purchased it, because that is up that way is all county property. So they purchased it from the Berlin Township School District. It was used for, in the early period of time after it was purchased by the county. You know, I guess there were, you know, community things that would, events that would take place in it, like maybe, you know, box socials and that kind of thing. But then it sat vacant for 40 years. And as I said, in 1998, through the efforts of the Wayne County Historical Society, and the commissioners decided to preserve it as a you know, one-room school, and that's when our open houses began, about 1998, and we've been having open houses here in the summer since 1998. And now I would invite you to come inside and see the interior. You'll note that there are two doors here. This door on the left would have been where the girls would have entered, and that was considered to be the girls' coat room. On this side, the boys would have entered, and over there inside would have been the boys' coat room. So, you know, and, you know, we did have a lot of outside games to play. You would have played Haley Over, and I always tell the story of Haley Over, because the girls, you would divide into two teams, and you have a softball you'd throw over the roof. So, of course, I suffered a little bit klutzy, you know. I got hit by the softball in the nose and broke my nose. That was the first time I broke my nose. But you would also, as you threw the ball over the roof and one side caught it, then you would chase around to the other side. And as I'm running past here, some kid was standing there with a makeshift bat, I guess. And as I ran past, he must have batted a piece of coal right across the nose. And I got sent home with a bloody head 6 stitches later. So, but a lot of wonderful memories. Oh, and the road out there, as you'll see, that was a dirt road. It made a wonderful place to play marbles. So you would play marbles in the road. You have a little hole, maybe this big, around, and play marbles in the middle of the road. And I still have my can of marbles at home. Yep, still have my can of marbles at home. So let's take a look at the inside. Here's the bell. Oh, they took the bell power out. Oh, I wonder why. Well, maybe they're going to try to repair it, because the bell was here, and as I said, the rope was supposed to be here too. Maybe they're going to repair it. Hopefully we will get it repaired, because the kids would love to come and ring this bell, but we hadn't rung in the last couple of years, because when we had a leak up here, then it got a little bit unstable. So, but maybe it's going to be repaired. Hopefully it will be. Okay. The screen is here to get ready for our program this afternoon. Okay, if you turn your... This is the organ. This is the original organ to the school. Our teacher, Mary McCarthy, who was here when I was here as a student, she was a wonderful organ player. And of course, we always started our day with a couple of patriotic songs. It doesn't work now, but it certainly did then, and it stood in this exact same spot. So, a very good piece of original things. The desks are all the original desks. There was another row of desks, smaller desks in here, but when the building was not in use and sort of sitting abandoned, they sort of got legs and walked out those back windows, you know. But these are all the original desks. The books that you see out, many of them were here as original books. Now, some things have been donated over the years from other sources, but the books, many of them were here. As you can see, the bookcases over there still have many of the original books, you know, in them. It's a little dark in here today, but we did have electricity when I was a student here. The teacher's desk up here, that's also original. That was here as a, you know, time as I was a student, that was also here. The stove was over here. You can come to the other side and, okay. The stove was right here. There's where the chimney was, up there. And it's a little hard to see with the not so clear day, but you can notice the little, say this along there, that's where the stove sat, and it was surrounded by what we call a fender, so that you kids wouldn't get burned. It's kind of a fender. It was enclosed in that, and you could, you know, open it up and put the coal in or whatever. The stove that's here is not the original, because I guess that was one of the items that went missing when the school was closed. But we brought that in so that it could be as a sort of a replica of what it might have looked like. But the original stove was right here in this area. So as I said, it's open every summer for you know, the open houses and so on. Now that would have been, if you notice the water container back here, that would have been, that's probably not the original, but it is certainly identical to the one we would have had for water in here. And in the, you know, you would have had sort of like the triangular drinking cups and so on, you know, to use. As I said, the water was brought up by the kids from Fred Schwartz's. I've also been told that, you know, education evolves. So at one point, I think the water was probably brought down from the poor farm. But when I was here, it was brought up from, you know, Fred Schwartz's, and that would have been, you know, we would have contained, you know, in the water there in that way. School started around 9 o'clock in the morning, and it ended at 4 in the afternoon. You would have had an hour for lunch and a couple of 10 or 15-minute recesses, maybe one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And you go outside to play games, as I said. Another outside game that we played, of course, would have been, you know, King of the Mountain, or, you know, one of those, and snow games, you know, fox and geese you played, you know, that kind of thing. This is a, you might want to, you know, take that would have been a book from the reading series of Scott Forsman on, you know, on your right there. That was not what the book series that I learned to read from, but it certainly was a very old series book that, you know, kids would have used. You know, the other books here I have brought into. You know, we did have a library which would have been, you know, on these shelves here, but these books, most of them I have purchased just to bring in for, you know, what would have been available at old schools. They're not, I guess what I'm saying is they're not original, okay? And neither is a player piano original. That was also brought in, but it's not original to this building. The desks are original to the building. Those bookcases are original to the building. But not, you know, not those other ones. The pictures and things, again, I've brought in, you know, to enhance our open houses and so on. Oh, and let me tell you, this was called the recitation bench up here. The bench, that's called a recitation bench. And that bench would have been across the front of the room. And as the kids would come in for, if we came in after your morning exercises, you would have sung perhaps 2 patriotic songs, maybe America, maybe My Country, America the Beautiful. But the recitation bench was along the front of the room, and that's where your individual instruction would have taken place. If you were, say, first grade or second grade, you would come up and the teacher would do her direct instruction for reading or for arithmetic, and then you would be given a little assignment and you would go back to your seat to sit. As I said, there was a row of small desks over where you're standing, and these desks would have been pushed over to that side a bit because the little kids would have sat over there on those smaller desks. When you got to be third grade, oh boy, you were growing up, you got to sit in the double seats. So, yeah, those benches are not original. That one is, but those benches are not original. They were brought in for our guests to be a little bit more comfortable in sliding in these smaller desks, but they're not original. Yeah. And we would have had, all the subject that you have, reading, you would have had reading. Each class would have had their own reading. If you had science and social studies, usually the 3rd and 4th graders would have had that together, and the 5th and 6th would have had theirs together. And science and geography and history were separate subjects back then. One year you would have done the 3rd grade book, and the next year you would have done the 4th grade book. So maybe you were in 3rd grade, but you were doing from the 4th grade book because they were together. Okay. I will show you a picture up here. Let me see, it's over here. Let me show you. Okay. This is going to be, maybe you need to step, out where it's a little bit more light. Okay. This is Bethel School in 1947. And I would have been in 1st grade then. And that's me down there. And it's taken out here in front of the building.
Nice. Very nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We would have, most of the students when I was here, 1946, 1951, would have been from that end of the township. So we were brought to school in a school bus. It was really a car. If you lived on this side, up the other side of, say, Marshall Machineries, they would have had to walk down here. In those days, if you lived about 2 miles from the school, you would have had to walk to school. So kids who lived on 652, they walked to school, walked down here to school. Yeah, and but as I said, do you have any questions for me that maybe I...
You covered it pretty well. Very well.
Answer.
Thank you very much.
So, yeah, all of these pictures and things, I've brought into, it's supposed to be representative of the one-room schools of the past. So some of the things are not particularly related to this school, but to represent one-room schools of the past.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, these would be a list. This is a list. You might want to look at this one. It's a list, as far as we know, of the teachers who were at Bethel School. Okay. This is a poem that I wrote, Bethel School. It sort of gives a history in, many ways.
Nice.
later today, I do think that another person who was a student here at the school might be around, hopefully. She said, she lives in New Jersey, so I'm not sure that she's come, but she said that she hoped to be here today. I would say there's maybe, that I know of, a dozen
Wow, still left.
of people who are still living, that would have gone here to school.
Nice.
There may be others, but, I'm not, those would be the ones that I know. And I think, and Carol Dunn, I think I saw her go up the lane, so she'll be in just a minute, and she might have a couple of things that she, would like to add to it. I'll have to come to the back because this map of Wayne County and all of the little pins represent where one-room schools in Wayne County once stood. And we know that there were over 300 one-room schools in Wayne County. They may not all have been open at the same time, but over 300 one-room schools in Wayne County. And as I said, Bethel and Lorella were the last ones to close. And these are old, pictures of old other schools in Wayne County. And this is the book that Carol and I wrote to the Berlin schools of Berlin Township. And there were 10 one-room schools in Berlin Township at one time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.